Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Tara, and today we have something very interesting to talk about. It's another video that I'm doing on a pagan holiday. The last one I did was Christmas, I believe, on YouTube, but I did a Facebook post on Valentine's Day. So today we are going to talk about Easter and how it is a tradition that many have followed for a very long time, assuming that it is in commemoration of the death and resurrection of our Messiah and that he conquered death on this day. I am going to let you know, those of you that may have not watched any of my previous videos, that I use the true name of our Father and Son, our Father Yahuwah, the Son Yahusha. I used to say Jesus for many, many years until I searched that out a couple years ago and found out the origins of the name Jesus. I do have a video on that. You can go back and watch that. So I choose to use the true names if you wonder why. Also, no, I am not Jewish. Our family is not Jewish. We go strictly by the scriptures, the biblical scriptures. So I'm letting you know that ahead of time. And as you've seen my videos, you'll understand where I'm coming from. I am just a disciple of my Father and his Son, here to help teach from the things that I've had to learn myself, because I've followed all of these pagan traditions for many years, just up until a few years ago, including them, teaching them to my children, observing them with my children, decorating everything, going all out, doing the whole thing. So I am doing this video because I wish I had somebody to help teach me. So I just give you the information so that you can go and research it out yourself, just like I had to do. And so, and this video on Easter, I am not doing this video at all to discount our Messiah's death and resurrection, but I am here to show you the pagan origins and how this is not truly commemorating him, but rather worshiping another god, a false god, the enemy. Easter has nothing to do with Yahusha's death and resurrection. It is very important that we understand the truth behind each holiday that we celebrate. We must not take the word of man that has conditioned us for many years, that we are raised to just assume that it is correct on how we're worshiping our Messiah. We must truly go to the scriptures, find out, think about the things that we're doing, and think about where did they originate. John 4:23 and 24 says, "But the hour is coming and is now here, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For the Father is seeking such people to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." So now I'm going to give a little background on where the death and resurrection really came from and how we should be commemorating it. And it started at Passover. You can also read in the New Testament the story in Luke 22 or John 13 and read about how Yahusha celebrated the Passover along with his disciples, how Yahusha was our ultimate Passover and died for us and was resurrected to be with the Father. But Passover began originally when the Israelites were taken out of bondage in Egypt. And we were told by Yahuwah, God, to recognize this through all generations. And that's, you can go to Exodus 12 through 20. It says, "For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am Yahuwah. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are, and when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be for you a memorial day, and you shall keep it as a feast to Yahuwah throughout your generations, as a statute forever. You shall keep it as a feast 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall remove leaven out of your houses. For if anyone eats what is leavened from the first day, and leaven is sin, just so y'all know, from the first day until the 7th day, that person shall be cut off from Israel. On the first day you shall hold a holy assembly, and on the 7th day a holy assembly. No work shall be done on those days. But what everyone needs to eat, that alone may be prepared by you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for on this very day I brought your hosts out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you shall observe this day throughout your generations as a statute forever. In the first month, from the 14th day of the month at evening, you shall eat unleavened bread until the 21st day of the month at evening. For 7 days no leaven is to be found in your houses. If anyone eats what is leavened, that person will be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he is a sojourner or a native of the land. You shall eat nothing leavened. In all your dwelling places you shall eat unleavened bread. You can also go watch my video called The Creator's Calendar, and I explain Passover in that, as well as the feasts. Then you can also read in Leviticus 23, 4 through 8, says, "These are the appointed feasts of Yahuwah, the holy convocations, which you shall proclaim at the time appointed for them. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at twilight, it is Yahuwah's Passover. And on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread to Yahuwah. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. On the first day you shall have a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work, but you shall present a food offering to Yahuwah for 7 days. On the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall not do any ordinary work." And if you go read all of Leviticus 23, it talks about all of the feasts. And I was always told growing up, all the feasts are done away with. And that is not true. Most of the feasts have not even been completed yet. And we have the spring feasts. Here we have, it starts with Passover, which is going to be coming up, which is what I just read about, which is on the 14th day of the first month. So biblically, it is always at the same time. It never changes. The following day is then unleavened bread. So again, you can go to Leviticus 23 and read further about all of the feasts. So this is when we are supposed to celebrate what our Messiah did for us. All right, so Easter was actually decided at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. They determined it to be the first Sunday after the first full moon following the spring equinox. Therefore, it's always changing, whereas Passover is always the 14th day of the first month, just as I was just telling you. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a little bit of history on the pagan origins of this, where it came from. And if you've seen my other videos, especially watch my pagan origins of Christmas, because I go into the details on Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz. Nimrod is the father of paganism. He's the king of Babylon, sun god, also known as Baal, Moloch, Osiris, Saturn, many more, and represented child sacrifice. Semiramis, his wife, the queen of Babylon, also known as Asherah, you can find in 1 Kings 18:19. She's also known as Ishtar, Isis, Eostra, there's many names that she was known of, just depending on the culture, what they called her. She was the fertility goddess. So the story goes, the pagan story goes, Semiramis was pregnant with Tammuz. He was born on Christmas Day. Again, you can watch my video. Tammuz was later killed by a wild boar, a pig, a large pig. His mother, Semiramis, made people believe that he was a savior because he died and miraculously came back to life 40 days later. Tammuz was celebrated on the first Sunday after the full moon, after the spring equinox. Notice that's the same time that the Catholic Church established Easter. The celebration that they had was a very evil celebration, which is also where babies were sacrificed. I don't want to go into more detail. That's already enough. That sounds horrible, but she is known as the fertility goddess, so you can only imagine all the other horrible things that are going on at this festival. Semiramis proclaimed 40 days of sorrow from the death of Tammuz to his resurrection, which now today we call Lent. Mainly followed, there's some different religions that follow it, but mainly the Catholic Church. So, and then you can see in here, I have the pictures. Semiramis. Semiramis was a legendary Assyrian queen who was given the title Queen of Heaven after claiming that her newborn son was the reincarnation of Nimrod. So Jeremiah 7:17 through 19 says, "Do you not see what they are doing in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood, the fathers kindle fire, and the women knead dough to make cakes for the Queen of Heaven. And they pour out drink offerings to other gods to provoke me to anger. It is I whom they provoke, declares Yahuwah. It is not themselves, to their own shame." So he's even pointing out these things that they are doing, giving false worship to this God. All right, we'll go a little bit over Lent and Ash Wednesday because it ties in with Easter. Lent is a 40-day period, as I just stated, of giving up something. So fasting for something, usually somebody just chooses something that they want to give up for 40 days. It starts on Ash Wednesday and it ends on Easter. This clearly came from the Babylonian roots. This 40 days was to mourn the death of Tammuz. Ash Wednesday and all of the Fridays during Lent, Catholics or whoever's observing this holiday, pagan holiday, abstain from eating pork because it was a pig that killed Tammuz. And then they and most people celebrate on Easter by eating ham. First, we shouldn't be eating unclean animals. Pork is a very unclean animal. And they don't sweat. They absorb everything. It's very full of bacteria. It's a very dirty animal. And Yahuwah detailed out for us what is clean and unclean. I'm going to be doing a health video soon, and I will go over all of this. A lot of people think that was done away with. We could do this. No, he still said, that's why in the ark, there were animals that went in 2 by 2, and there were animals that went in by 7. The ones that went in by 7 were the clean animals, which is they were extra animals so that Noah and his family could eat since the vegetation hadn't grown yet. So it's very important that we understand what to eat because we do not want to defile our temple. And you can read about the clean and unclean in Leviticus 11, 1 through 8. Again, I'm going to go into detail when I do a video very soon on nutrition. All right, back to this. Ash Wednesday is rooted in Norse or Nordic paganism. By placing ashes on the forehead, it was to be protection from the Norse god Odin, a.k.a. Baal, Nimrod, Moloch, Saturn, all of those, just another name. Additionally, that cross is the sign of Tau, T-A-U, which is the T for Tammuz. So that's what that stands for when they go in there and put that cross on the forehead. And then we can read here, and this is an abomination. Ezekiel 8, 1 through 18 says, "In the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house with the elders of Judah sitting before me, the hand of Yahuwah fell upon me. Then I looked, and behold, a form that had the appearance of a man. Below what had appeared to be his waist was fire, and above his waist was something like the appearance of brightness, like gleaming metal. He put out the form of a hand and took me by the lock of my head, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven and brought me in visions of God to Israel, or to Jerusalem, to the entrance of the gateway of the inner court that faces north, where was the seat of the image of jealousy, which provokes to jealousy. And behold, the glory of the God of Israel was there, like the vision that I saw in the valley. Then he said to me, Son of man, lift up your eyes now toward the north. So I lifted up my eyes toward the north, and behold, north of the altar gate and the entrance was the image of jealousy. And he said to me, Son of man, do you see what they are doing? The great abominations that the house of Israel are committing here, to drive me far away from my sanctuary? But you will see still greater abominations. And he brought me to the entrance of the court, and when I looked, behold, there was a hole in the wall. Then he said to me, Son of man, dig in the wall. So I dug in the wall, and behold, there was an entrance. And he said to me, Go in and see the vile abominations that they are committing here. So I went in and saw, and there engraved on the wall all around was every form of creeping thing and loathsome beast, and all the idols of the house of Israel. And before them stood 70 men of the elders of the house of Israel, with Jazaniah the son of Staphan standing among them. Each had his censer in his hand, and the smoke of the cloud of incense went up. Then he said to me, Son of man, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel are doing in the dark, each in his room of pictures? For they say, the Lordos does not see us, or Yahuwah does not see us. Yahuwah has forsaken the land. He said to me also, you will still see greater abominations that they commit. Then he brought me to the entrance of the north gate of the house of Yahuwah, and behold, there sat a woman weeping for Tammuz. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? You will see still greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the house of Yahuwah, and behold, at the entrance of the temple of Yahuwah, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men with their backs to the temple of Yahuwah, and their faces toward the east, worshiping the sun toward the east. Then he said to me, have you seen this, O son of man? It is too light a thing for the house of Judah to commit the abominations that they commit here, that they should fill the land with violence and provoke me still to further anger? Behold, they put the branch to their nose. Therefore I will act in wrath. My eye will not spare, nor will I have pity. And though they cry in my ears with a loud voice, I will not hear them. Those are some pretty tough verses to hear, but he is speaking exactly of the things that I am telling you in here and how these abominations have come about. Very sadly, because many don't realize it. So a little bit back to Easter, where the name Easter came from. As I stated, Ishtar is the goddess of fertility, also Semiramis. Easter has nothing to do with our Messiah's resurrection. Rome just put it on our calendars so that we will just do like the rest of the world. And notice how almost everybody, most people celebrate Easter, even if they're atheists or any religion. Really, many people celebrate it. You can go to any store and you see that they have Easter decorations up, whatever it might be. So Easter, like I said, has many names, but Ishtar, Eostra, goddess of fertility, which is where they got the name Easter. Now we're going to get on to the Easter eggs, a few of the tradition. The Easter eggs were representative of new life. So remember, this is for Tammuz. Ishtar eggs stand for the rebirth of Tammuz. The Babylonians said that it was a sacred tradition that the eggs to be dipped in the blood of the sacrificed babies, which was the blood sacrifice. You have to think about this. So when you dye Easter eggs, you have to think, where did it come from? Why am I doing this? Because, we did it. We did it with our kids. I loved doing it. It's fun. You can make them pretty and sparkly. But we've got to really think about the origins. Where did this come from? Really think about, where did this start? Why am I doing this? Because if we're celebrating the death and the resurrection of our Messiah, where are eggs in that story? It's not, right? So we need to really go back, find out the origin, and find out truly what we are celebrating. Because everything that we do started at some point. So it's up to us to search out these traditions and know where they came from. The enemy knows exactly how to work. And the Easter bunny, very simple. Don't need to go into that. The Easter bunny just represents fertility. Because as we know, bunnies get pregnant. They're not pregnant very long. Give birth to many more bunnies. It is just another symbol of fertility. There were no Easter bunnies around the Messiah when he died, right? There's no bunnies in the scripture there. And then we just look at, sadly, many churches today, many of the churches that we attended, they did, and we partook of it as well. They have very much commercialized it even more. It's already been celebrated, since the 4th century. But you look at it these days, even the mega churches, they have these massive Easter egg hunts. They're giving out candy, which I'm going to go over candy and sugar in my video. To anything basically that takes the focus off the truth about the resurrection, death and resurrection of our Messiah, Yahusha. So we should be separating ourselves from paganism, not going along with it. Sadly, it is joining Satan's celebrations. I shouldn't say sadly, because once we start realizing these things, we can't go back and go, wow, what have I been doing? We have to just thank our Father in heaven for the truth that he's giving us and know how to move forward. And like I said, it is a change. Everything is going to be a change. It is a lifestyle change. You will be rejected for these changes. I always state this. But we've got to know, who do we choose? Are we going to choose to worship? And I am here to just educate, not here to condemn anyone, because I didn't know these things as well. I'm just here to help teach them, because I wish that somebody would have told me. And so without people out there giving truth, others are not going to know. And when the time comes that we got to make a decision, we're going to have to report to our Father, and he's going to say, did you know who I am? And it's a very selfish thing to keep things to ourselves when we find these truths out. As much as people will not want to hear this, you might get rejected. It is that we need to stand up so that others can also then study these things out. That's why I'm here, to just be a disciple, because I would have wanted others to tell me these things as well. And like I said, I did all of this. I even, taught our children. We did all of these things. So finding truth and changing going forward is what is important, as we should not be conforming to the ways of the world, but being transformed by the renewing of our minds, Romans 12:2. Matthew 7:13 and 14, enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it, because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. So we must choose this day who we are going to serve, rather than going along with the crowd, rather than going along with the traditions. And even if once we learn these things and we know these things, we just say, well, you know what? It's still at least celebrating, because in my heart, I'm celebrating him. But that's where the enemy knows where he can get us, is by doing that and by continuing following these pagan origins, these pagan traditions that he's taught the world over the many years. So thank you all so much again for listening. I pray that you are very blessed on your studies going forward. Again, I always say, go back, pull the information. This information is in there. It's in books. It's on the internet. You can find all of this information. But most importantly, just listen to the Holy Spirit and what your conviction is. And I thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of your day.